Hi, Jilly Jules Cruise Companion. Today I'd like to go over some overrated hints that cruisers give other cruisers. And I will either give you a debunk or what I think of that piece of advice. A primary piece of advice for any form of travel is don't overpack. This is actually a very, very good piece of advice, but what people don't get advised is to layer their clothing. You don't have to pack as many clothes if you just layer the clothing, and it will act as a windbreak or keep you warmer. A primary reason for not overpacking is if you were traveling by plane. And planes actually have fairly tight luggage restrictions for checked luggage. So you really don't need any more than 17 to 20 kilos for any trip of up to about 3 months. You just layer your clothing regardless of what the weather. You can actually carry on non-alcoholic beverages onto a cruise ship. It's usually up to about 12 cans of a soda, commercially purchased soda. Or some cruise lines allow you to take on 2 bottles of wine, which is about 750 mils each. But if you are really concerned about the weight of your luggage, and even though this may be your carry-on, you might have mobility issues and it might be difficult to negotiate or navigate with a heavy carry-on luggage, do you really want to have soda, drinks in your bag that you are going to be able to purchase on the ship anyway? If it is a big concern and you are struggling with the weight of your carry-on luggage, just buy the beverage package, the soda package, and if you drink enough over the course of the cruise, it becomes economically viable. Another piece of overrated advice that I always hear is don't get a cabin by an elevator. Actually, I find them quite quiet. I do not find it disturbing at all. Other passengers milling around the vestibule of the elevator don't seem to raise enough noise on the cruises that I've been on, but I've only been on 46 cruises. I also try to get close enough to an elevator that I don't have to walk too far. Even if I'm in the aft, I will walk through the whole of the ship to get to the right elevator that will get me to the closest, to the restaurant or to the theatre or the activity that I'm wanting to attend. I do not necessarily avoid being near elevators. One piece of advice that I often hear that I think is overrated is paying ahead for perks, such as early embarkation, early disembarkation, priorities on the tender, and concierge services. Nothing in my world wants me to queue jump over anybody else. If I get access to an activity, well, that's fine. The universe is telling me that activity isn't for me if I don't get access to it. I don't need somebody, a concierge, jumping a queue on my behalf. I'm quite comfortable with just going along with the flow. Now, internet package. This is one that I can take or leave. On a short cruise that is just in my local area, I don't necessarily get an internet package. But if it's a longer cruise and I'm going international, yeah, I will spend that additional amount to get the internet package. I want to be connected to my friends and family all over the world. Is it worth it? Sometimes the reception is pretty bad, but it's going to be something rather than nothing. And when you are looking at the advancements in technology compared to even 5 years ago, 10 years ago, no, 5 years ago, pre-pandemic, I can remember on a cruise coming out of Norway and needing to change my flight details from Russia to go into Jordan. I literally had to buy a package that was just minutes, and because of the delay on the phone call or the and the miscommunication with two different languages, and it was actually fraught with a lot of anxiety. So having an unlimited internet package would have allayed some of those anxieties that I had, those fears that I had, because I would have been able to communicate with the person in a slower, more controlled way, instead of just lobbing, throwing, this is what I need, get it done for me before then, blah, blah, blah. You know, no, I can't do anything other than, I can't hear you, this is what I need you to do. It was a really uncomfortable conversation. It was almost one-sided, and the guy did do an amazing job, and I had to pay an extra $250 or something to change my flights. But having the internet that runs fairly smoothly in 2023 is very different to what internets were doing pre-pandemic. So yeah, I actually do invest at times, depending on the length of the cruise, internet. I don't often see it anymore, but occasionally I do when pundits say to take a full camera on your trip. I always just use the camera on my phone. The quality of cameras on the phones are very good quality now, and you don't have to have an additional item that you have to carry, which may be heavy, that you have to charge, so you need extra cables, and you also have an extra item that you have to make sure from a security perspective you know where it is at all times. So I don't have an additional camera, I just use the camera on my phone for all of my memories. Some of the most underrated advice that I always hear that people just don't listen to is wear your swimmers or carry your swimmers in your carry-on luggage when you get onto the boat for embarkation day. You can be one of the first to get into the pool when it's not crowded. Especially in summertime, this would have to be the best piece of advice, especially if you're traveling with little people. In addition to keeping your swimmers either on you or in your carry-on, your luggage might not get to your room in time. You can just wander and have some food and be ready for sail away, but you don't have to worry about going to find your room and getting your swimmers to enjoy the cruise right from the minute that you step on board. The next underrated point that I often consider is using a travel agent. I use a travel agent at times, especially if they can get me an additional discount, if they can get me some additional perks such as a bottle of wine or a free speciality dining or something of that nature. And then if you do have a travel agent, if there are any questions that you have, you can direct your questions through your travel agent, and you don't have to go to social media and ask some random stranger who has no idea about your booking and your personal circumstance that's going to give you advice that's going to fail you. At least with the travel agent, you have a legal obligation with them that they are going to look out for your best interest. And if, for example, they don't, for whatever reason, you do have a contractual recourse that you don't have if you're just dealing with somebody on social media. So yes, sometimes I do get a travel agent, sometimes I don't, but it's very underrated. Everybody should at least make contact with a travel agent and make a travel agent your best friend. I'll step back to the elevator question for another minute, and this I think is an underrated one, especially on the newer ships, those huger ships. If you want to be halfway between the action, try and get a cabin that is halfway between the aft and the forward, and be near an elevator so you don't have too far to walk to the initial direction that you need to go, up or down, and then you are halfway between wherever you want to go, to the restaurant at one end or to the theatre at the other. So getting a cabin near a lift in the middle of especially those larger ships can be very beneficial if you have mobility issues or if you don't want to get your step count up every single day. And my final piece of underrated advice that people just don't seem to listen to, and you will see it on social media once again, I'm bitching about social media. Oh, how many plugs are there? What plugs are there? Is it the Australian plugs? Is it American plugs? What do I need? If you are a genuine traveler, you will have a universal plug set. It doesn't matter what power outlets are on any cruise ship, in any hotel room, anywhere in the world. If you have a universal power plugs, it doesn't matter. You're going to have the right access to power, and utilizing them with multiple USB sockets, because a lot of things get powered now by just a USB, a B or a C. You just have to be a reasonable traveler and invest in universal power adapters. That's it. End of story. Don't ask on social media, what PowerPoints are there? Be a traveler. Sorry, I know that just sounds so harsh, but I just get so frustrated with some of the questions on social media. If you've been traveling as long as I have, 36 years, the questions, I'm a first-time traveler. There are enough vlogs, information out there. You actually don't have to actually ask any question, except for asking on the internet, ask Google, rather than asking a random stranger who I keep calling Bob, which is really mean because I know some absolutely beautiful Bobs. Because Bob might have a different opinion to you and may be giving you a bum stare. Please, 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 there's enough vlogs online, there's enough blogs, there's enough information on Google that you do not have to ask anything on social media about travel and cruising. This is Julie Jules, Cruise Companion, saying stay safe, everybody, and happy travels.